Hello, traditional harmony. I wanted to do a little podcast about figured bass and inversion symbols. What is a figured bass? Well, take a look down here. These are in your notes, these handouts, and this is an example of a figured bass right at the bottom from Bach. There's a bass line written out, and then numbers are placed above the bass line, and that tells the keyboardist or guitarist what chords to play to go along with that bass line. This is what the musical result would be of this. In other words, the bass line is played as is, but then some voicings are created, the various harmonies that are inferred by these symbols. Okay, and all right. So what do these symbols mean? Well, often they mainly refer to inversion. So if you have a root position chord, you put either 5/3 or you put nothing at all. If you have a first inversion chord, you put a 6/3 and or a 6. That's the shorthand. These are the ones that are most used. Okay. Second inversion of a triad, first inversion of root position of a 7th chord, first inversion of a 7th chord, second inversion of a 7th chord, third inversion of a 7th chord. And of course, when we talk about these inversions, we're always talking about the lowest sounding note. So that will usually be the bass note, of the choir, for example, or the bass, like a cello could play that, or the organ pedals, or the left hand of the harpsichord, for example, would be playing the lowest note. All right, now these numbers, of course, can correspond to the interval above the bass. So 6/3, that means there's a sixth above the bass and a third above the bass, and that's why we call it a first. That's how we get a first inversion, a triad from there. Over here, 6/4/3, there's a sixth, there's a fourth, and a third above the bass. So we get this sound. That's a second inversion 7th chord. It probably wouldn't be played like this. It would probably be played something like this, with a few notes up higher, and then the bass note kind of by itself down there. Okay, so these are just theoretical examples, but not real voicings that would be used in traditional harmony. So there are a lot of handouts on this. Please look through. For example, if you see 7 flat, that means it's a 7 in root position, but you need to flat the 7th. If you have just the sharp, that means it's a triad in root position, but you need to sharp the 3rd. Okay, if a symbol is all by itself, it means the 3rd. And then if you get a complicated symbol like this, it means a second inversion of a 7th chord, but with the 4th raised, D sharp in this case, and the 6th raised, F sharp in this case. That'll give us a fully diminished D sharp, diminished 7 chord, okay, in second inversion. All right, so you are going to be required to realize figured bass. So again, here, this handout has even more information on inversions, looking at it a slightly different way. So read through all these and make sure you understand. You guys will be realizing figured bass throughout this class. So here's a good example of what you might encounter. Notice that there's no symbol here, so there's a root position F major triad. Everything is diatonic unless it's specified by a symbol, like a natural or a flat, a natural. Otherwise, everything is going to be diatonic. So this would be an F major triad. And so with this, now here's a passing tone, and then you have a 6 here. So that means 6/3. So think about it, an F and a C above this. So that's going to be an FAC chord. So that'll be a 1 chord in first inversion, a 1/6, so to speak. Now there's no symbol here, so we're back to F major triad. And here we have a B flat major triad because, again, there's no symbol. So it stands for 5/3. So we'll have a 3rd and a 5th above this bass, and that means we're going to be a B flat major triad. Okay, notice that in this beat, this 3rd beat, there's a 6 here, and that means now the same bass note will occur, but it's going to be a 6/3 chord. So if you put a 6th above B flat, you get a G, and a 3rd above B flat is D. So G, B flat, D, that is a G minor triad in first inversion. So we go from B flat major to that, have a G minor triad in first inversion. Okay? 4-2 stands for 6-4-2. So a sixth is G, a fourth is E. Again, diatonic, doesn't have to be a perfect fourth. This is an augmented fourth. And then a 2, B flat to C. So we've got a C, E, G, B flat chord. That's a C7 in third inversion. So, and then eventually that's going to resolve to this, which is we've seen this one before, an A with a 6. So that is a 1-6, an F major chord in first inversion. Okay, and we could move on here. I just want to point out a couple others. If you have a 7, that means a root position 7th chord. But what are we going to do in this case? If we have no number by the symbol, it means the third. So the third is going to be a natural. Check it out right there, a B natural. So a keyboardist has to make sure they play a B natural in this voicing. So a G7 with B natural. Likewise on this one, this is a triad, see? Just if there's no numbers, that means root position, and in this case the natural means make the third a natural, so B natural. And I don't think there's much else here. There's a 4 flat, so that means over this note, normally it would be E natural, but now it's going to be E flat because it says 4 flat. Okay, now 4 to 3 is what we call a suspension. It could be even an accented passing tone, or depending on how it's voiced. But anyway, this is telling you that the fourth here is going to the third here over the same bass note, B flat. So this is called a 4-3 suspension. And here, over here, this is a G7 chord. It's a first inversion of a 7th chord. All right, so how would that look? So keep this, this page is in your notes. And I'm going to put up another page which is kind of a solution of to this. Let's see. This is how a keyboardist might play this figured bass. So this is the same exact thing, but with a realized keyboard part. So 2, 3. So that's how it might be realized and actually played on the keyboard. Okay, so figured bass symbols, there are lots of them to think about, but mainly the numbers are a shorthand for what intervals are occurring above the bass. In this case, a 6th, a 5th, and a 3rd that we don't see because this is the shorthand. 6-5 is a first inversion 7th chord, right? So that's about figured bass. Again, review all your handouts here on figured bass so that you understand the symbols. Okay, so that's it for now. Again, figured bass and inversion symbols, very important to study of tonal harmony. And they will be combined, I should say, they will be combined with Roman numerals, right? So here are the figured bass symbols, but they go with a Roman numeral when we're doing our little analysis of these harmonies. So the figured bass symbols are useful to actually make a figured bass in a lead sheet for Baroque musicians, but also for our analysis when we're analyzing the various harmonies in tonal music.